All right, y'all, we're going to go on and get started. Good afternoon, my friends. Hope everyone is well and safe. Welcome to week 2 of Zoom. Week 1 is down, 6 weeks to go. Based on your work this week, you guys, I know we're going to survive it. Week 1 went absolutely amazing. And you guys didn't seem to have any problems at all handling the work content. So I do appreciate that. A couple housekeeping things before we dive in. The first thing is, you guys, I want to talk about grades. Grades will always be posted by Thursday. I try to stick to that timeline because it gives me a week to actually get through, read, analyze, and actually grade everybody's assignment and respond to everybody's assignment. So if you complete your assignments and once you finish completing your tasks for the actual week, try to log back in on Thursdays after 12 to make sure that you're looking at the feedback and you're also looking at the responses to your posts, because I know some people work quickly and fast, and by Monday they are completely done and they don't log back in until by Thursday. Just try to look at your grades and keep so you can be aware of those. But the main thing I want you to make sure that you're looking at is the feedback and the responses that other people are leaving, and as well as feedback that I'm leaving on your post as well, because it will help you strengthen your reflection for your journal. And so that brings me to talk a little about the journal, because there were some questions this week about the reflection journal. So because you have done most of the work during the week with the instructional tasks, you guys, it's very important that you understand that the reflection is truly not a new task for you. Some of the coursework that you've done for that week already can apply to some of those reflection questions. So please feel free to use it, because I don't want you overworking yourself, because you've done most of the thinking and learning during the week anyway. So if some of those reflection questions, some of your same work that you've done for that week applies to it, definitely use it. But my thing is, it's called a reflection journal for a reason. So you should have a deeper reflection once you begin to start doing your journaling, based on all the feedback that you received on your posts, all the feedback that you've seen others on other posts, all the responses that you've done, all the feedback that I've jumped in and I've shared some things. So once you get to your reflection, you should be able to have a conceptual understanding of the learning. And with that conceptual understanding of the learning, that should allow you to write a deeper reflection. But to really answer your questions and to really address it, you guys, it's not a new task, because most of it, at least about 80% of it, you've already done when you've done the work. And so it's just deepening your reflections when you do, and you go and put it on your reflection journal, put it into your reflection journal. So again, please feel free to use the content that you've already used if it applies to that question, but also make sure that you're going back, looking at the responses and looking at the feedback that others are leaving for you, so that you can actually deepen your reflection when it comes to that time. And so now it brings us to talk about the quality of work. You guys, the quality of your work for week 1 was absolutely amazing. I truly feel like all my classes this year have done an amazing job with just quality work, but I truly feel that we can probably publish, if we really wanted to, we can probably publish or write us a book based on this class, just based on the depth of the responses that you are given to the tasks that are assigned to you. I truly feel, again, that you guys, if you won't have a problem, I see nothing but A's in this course, because you are really, really putting some true thought and you're being truly honest and transparent in it too. And I really, really, really like that. I really, 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 really appreciate Miranda's her history background, that her extensive background in history, because I think it adds flavor and season to the meat of this course. All this course deals with history, but we're talking about urban education because of her history background. She's really it just adds flavor to it. So Miranda, I know you're on here today. Please keep that up with that extensive, because I think you take me to history class every week, and I appreciate it. I feel like I'm going to the movies every week, you guys, when I'm grading your papers. All I need is my popcorn, because I just like the reading and I like the transparency and I like the responses from everybody. And so I just like to go through everything and I read and read and read and read and read. And I just get a joy of doing that. So please, please, please keep up the quality that you are producing with your work. I know we only at week 1, but if week 2 through 7 is anything like week 1, you guys, we're going to have an amazing spend time in this course. I don't know about you, but I thoroughly enjoyed week one. That was some very, very good learning. So that's pretty much our housekeeping things that we need to get off the plate first of all. Now let's dive into the reflection. And so today I'm going to start off with a video. It's a minute video. As you watch, I want you to think about the connections, that how it connects to urban education and also the learning from last week and also the learning from this week. If you kind of dived into those articles and the videos already, there should be some connections. And I just want us to try to talk about it. And I'm gonna ask you a couple to speak out once the video is over. A couple of you to speak out what you took away from the video and how it connects to urban education based on what we've already learned from up to this point with urban education. So I'm about to start the video and then we'll actually have a conversation around it in just a minute.
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behavior is now set for the rest of their lives. And when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
All right, so let's come back and if you can, I'm gonna give you about a minute to reflect and make some connections, and then I want you to come on and then talk back to me what you took away from that video as it connects to urban education in the learning that we've done thus far with our course. And so you can unmute yourself and jump in and give us some thought.
Hey, Dr. Bernie, how are you?
I'm doing great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So the video, it was a little bit like it doesn't really follow the as far as like it's showing on my end.
Okay.
It was kind of a little bit. It wasn't really on point as far as like the voice and the video going. Can you play it one more time and let's see if it'll be a little better as far as getting it out?
Training fleas requires a glass jar with a lid. The fleas are placed inside the jar and the lid is then sealed. They are left undisturbed for 3 days. Then, when the jar is opened, the fleas will not jump out. In fact, the fleas will never jump higher than the level set by the lid. Their behavior is now set for the rest of their lives. And when these fleas reproduce, their offspring will automatically follow their example.
Was that better?
Not so much, but based off the wording, I think I can put something together. Just give me a second. I'm thinking.
Okay. Anybody else want to jump in and want to jump in and give us some thought about that video?
So I know they mentioned that basically when they're contained into one environment, they were able to conform to what it was, and they didn't basically know that they could actually move beyond the lid once it was off. And I think that's kind of like it's related to urban education, because what happens is, depending on what's being taught in urban education, if it's not being taught that you aren't more, like you're more than your circumstances, like, you know, they won't stay stagnant. So basically your urban education, if the child or the teacher is just doing basically straight to book curriculum instruction and nothing more, the child won't understand that there's so much more beyond not having a lot of money for resources or things like that. So that's kind of the comparison. I hope that makes sense. But that was
Okay.
what I kind of got.
Right. Okay. Okay. That definitely makes sense. With that. So and I just connected to again. Well, I'll make my connections when somebody else speaks. I don't want to give. I want everybody to have an opportunity to actually speak.
It made me think about just kind of like the expectations that we have on children. So, you know, I think like whatever the bar is that you set for kids, like they're able to achieve that. So if you have low expectations, and that's what you're going to receive out of children because that's what you're messaging to them. But if you message to them that, you know, that I have high standards and high expectations of you, then children really will rise to that. And kind of like what the video was saying with like their offspring, you know, later on, like those same thoughts and beliefs and values also it goes beyond, you know, just the generation that we're seeing right now. It goes beyond that as well.
Good. I like the word expectations. Latasha, you want to jump in?
Because and I'm gonna go beyond like curriculum. If your family comes up in a urban area, and let's say for instance it's a teacher parent conference, your mom or dad isn't that educated, so automatically a lot of times those teachers will be like, oh well, you're just gonna be just like your parents. So it's like generational. Like you see that mom and dad probably doesn't have much, so automatically you're putting that child in a box, so like they can't reach above the lid or something like that.
I definitely agree. And my thing, you guys, is that the takeaways I want you to get from that are you are definitely addressing those takeaways, definitely to expectations, because one thing when we read the article specifically point out that urban schools are expected to fail. And they are expected to fail because of the negative connotation that's put on them. And that means they've already set low expectations for them. So even if I take the lid off and say, dream and imagine, if I tell leaders to dream and imagine and transform schools because of that lid, even when they say when you take the lid off or when you even pour the fleas out, they won't go higher than that expectation because they begin to feel inferior, so they act inferior. You don't have to make them and force them to be inferior anymore. Their actions and their expectations are inferior, and you don't have to force them or hold them to it. They're gonna actually do it. And so when I think about urban education, you guys, because of that, when it comes to the white flight and the political and the economic and the social aspects of what really have caused the urban education to get this negative attachment to it, you guys, the lid has been lifted. Although we still face and deal with some of those things, the lid has been lifted on some of those things, but because that's the norm now and that's the expectation, now we still that's pretty much even with leaders. When I think about leaders and teachers who lead in the urban settings, some of them don't even believe in the kids. You got some leaders who are leading and don't believe in the kids. So therefore, there's going to be low expectations all around. And so I'll come back and address that in a minute. But you really got what I wanted you to get from the video, that sometimes we don't even have to force low expectations on people. If they used to it in low expectations and that's all that they know and all that they hear, they're going to perform to average and low expectations, even without a leader or someone over them saying anything about it, because that's what they are actually used to. And so you guys spoke a lot to the kids, because it definitely happens to that. Teachers don't believe in them, have low expectations for them, and that's exactly what the kids give them. You have teachers who set high expectations for them, and those kids perform to those high expectations. And I took it a level higher when I'm thinking about leaders and people who are coaching leaders and teachers people who are teaching the kids. If the expectations are low, they're gonna always walk in performing to those low expectations. So last week, you guys, we really want to look at outcome number one. That was our priority focus and our priority point for that whole sector of learning. I wanted you to see just how those issues confronting K-12 urban education are bound to the social, economic, and then also the political factors that has truly overshadowed some things. And so I think the article in the video did a pretty decent job of giving us a 360 view of urban education, really addressing what I liked about it, the elephant in the room, that most decision makers, that most policy makers always run from or stay away from, and that's inequity and inequality. The leaders, then when I think about leaders, I'm talking about from government officials to politicians to superintendents to school board members. They really run from addressing those two words, and that's why we still are faced 60 years later with the problem that we see in urban schools because of inequality and inequity. So when I read your responses, I always look for trends. And so when I read your responses on the impact, because I love looking to see, okay, how is this leader or how is this teacher going to apply the learning they receive and what impact is going to have on them as future leaders. And some trends I noticed, for one, everybody was talking about how they want to advocate for urban schools. And that's starting with by building relationships, providing high quality instruction and learning opportunities for the scholars. And that is definitely the purpose behind week one. I wanted you to really understand how urban education came about, but also still the challenges that we currently still face with urban education. And for those people who work into urban schools, just to fire you up to do more, be more, and give more. To those scholars, because they deserve it. Urban education, you guys, and the educators in urban schools, you guys, it's just necessary that we do it. One, because it's the right thing to do, but number two, again, I say the kids deserve it. And so we can't depend on the school board to fix the issue. We can't depend on the federal government to fix the issue, because one, they helped created it. It's the ones who are connected to the work. That's the teachers and that's the leaders who can really change this thing around. And if we want to say, okay, this negative connotation and this negative attachment to urban schools, you guys, if we are expected to fix it, it's the ones who are connected to the work to fix it. And that's us. That's the educators who are in the field, because we the one can set those high expectations. We the one can advocate for these kids. We the one can provide out of the box experiences for these kids so that they won't feel like, hey, I'm just getting the bottom of the barrel. Hey, I know it's a better school across the track, and so I just have to deal with what I'm dealing with. Those kids should be very prideful of their education. They should still be prideful of their experiences that they're receiving. So it's our job to do that, and leaders can definitely make that happen. And so when I think about that, you guys, urban schools, I advocate so much for urban schools because I've lived the work, and I'm a testament of that. I know it can happen. And I know I kind of put it on a couple people's posts, and I'll kind of share some of that in just a minute. But urban schools need bold and courageous leaders and teachers that remove that lid that you just saw. My thing is, a lot of times school districts want to set a lid. Everybody's going to do this scripted curriculum, and everybody's going to do RTI this way, and everybody's going to do that. That's putting lids and that's placing lids. And sometimes principals and leaders like, oh, I got to abide by this because I don't want to be written up, and I got to abide by this because I don't want to get in trouble. And you guys, that's still setting lids. When you know what's best for kids and you know what kids need, yes, some things are non-negotiables. Tier 1 curriculum are non-negotiables, but there are so many ways that we can remove those lids to make sure we are giving our kids and giving those kids what's best for that population. And so I share my a principal testimony, you guys, on a couple people posts to let them know, you guys, it's really not about the funding, because when I think about urban schools, yes, the funding has been cut. Yes, the funding is now being attached to school performance and academic performance on a district, but every district is still assigning urban schools Title I dollars and Title I funds. And again, it goes back to how do leaders use those funds to provide those opportunities to those scholars. And when I think about my situation. I was placed into taking over a school. The school that I took over, the first school that I took over was a school that was reconstituted. So pretty much everybody at the school was terminated. The superintendent terminated everybody there, and he hired me to go take it over. So therefore I had to hire from the cafeteria all the way up to teachers and administration. So it was just me at the school, and I had to staff the entire school. At this time, this school had been a failing school for like 10 years. Could not get off the F list for 10 years. And he told me, Marvin, you have 1 year to change this school. And so when I went in there, you guys, I knew, number one, I had to put some system and structures in place, but I made the school look different and I made it feel different. Even though it was an F school, you guys, you would have thought you was walking in one of the top private schools in the nation. I just had, it was high expectations, and it just held everybody accountable. Teachers, stakeholders, administration, students, everybody was held accountable. And you guys, in 1 year, we transformed that school and became a state recognized school, a model school of transformation. We grew 30 percentage points in every content: math, reading, writing, social studies, science. Everything that we was tested on, we grew 30 percentage points and above. We became off the failing list all in 1 year, but it was attributed to expectations. But then after that, you guys, there when choice came, because once parents start seeing that, hey, the gaps in my kids are closing, some of my parents start applying for magnet school and trying to pull those kids out of that urban setting, because again, those negative connotations, they liked and they loved what was going on. But my thing is, I was gonna tell them, you're gonna bring them back, because the school was so it was so non-traditional. You can walk into my school, and yes, you can walk into a classroom, you're gonna see kids standing on their desk saying their multiplication facts, rapping their sight words. It's just it's no telling what you will see, because it was just so non-traditional with that. And those parents would take those kids and put those kids in a magnet setting, and what would happen is within 4.5 weeks, they'll be walking back through our doors saying the kid could not handle the magnet setting because it was just too traditional for them. All of my teachers had their kids enrolled in an F school at that time. It was an F school. And so they dropped them from A schools and they dropped them from B graded schools and brought them to our school, not because of convenience. You guys, they didn't do it for convenience. They did it because they believed in the work and they knew kids were being educated at our school. And so my thing is, I tell that testimony because my thing is, we as leaders, you got to make it happen. In anything, I told my superintendent, okay, if you put me on a time schedule, you telling me 1 year to change, I got to do things my way, because I know what's best for kids. And that's when I think about the lead. Leaders are going to have to be truly bold if we're going to make sure that we get some of these negative connotations that are attached to urban schools off. We got to do what's best for kids. When I think about exposing kids and exposure and opportunities, you guys, that's what I use Title I funds for. My kids, when I took over that school, it was a neighborhood school. Probably 90% of my students had never been 10 minutes outside of that neighborhood. They didn't know what downtown looked like, which is 10 minutes away. And it was just depressing because they didn't know what stuff that was right into their cities. So I made it my business to provide opportunities where they got to travel the state. I took them. We're in Louisiana. They got a chance to go to Texas. They got a chance to go to Atlanta. They got a chance to go to down south, which is New Orleans, because that's Louisiana history. But I made those opportunities available. I made those opportunities available for those kids so that they can be provided with all of the exposure that we need. And that's when I say bold and courageous leaders and teachers. Urban schools need these kind of quality of teachers if we are going to lift this negative connotation off the schools. But not only that, if we're going to keep our kids into our schools, because if not, we're going to lose them by the groves. And as you know, we are losing them by the groves because they feel they can go somewhere else and get a better education. And so one thing as a leader that I did, that I felt, I always wanted to make sure I was doing something different than magnet schools, something different than charter schools, something different than schools that could steal my kids, because I wanted my kids to stay, because I knew I was building them. If they stayed with me, that they would be on grade level by the time they exited elementary school. And so I just wanted to share that, because again, if we don't lift that lid off urban education, we're gonna always, whether it's teachers or students, as we're gonna not everybody in that organization gonna have low expectations, but overall the school is gonna continue to be underperforming. It's gonna continue to struggle because of that lid. That lid is on there. And so my thing is, that's pretty much what I have for today as far as us learning and reflecting. Now I'm gonna open it up for questions or comments. If you have questions or comments, we can open it up and then we'll begin to end our day. Anybody with questions or comments? Let me look in the chat. All right, so I don't see anybody has sent a question or a comment or in the chat. So my thing is, I'm not going to hold you. It's always, like I said, last week will be what was the week. That will be our longest Zoom, because most of the time, every week, what I do when I get on, I'm just going to always make some connections and some reflections on the work that we've done for the actual week. So it'll always be about a 20-minute process, because most of our learning takes place inside our work, inside of our platform. Our virtual POC is what I call it, because we are doing so much learning when we are responding and posting to the instructional task. And so my thing is, I do want to highlight it before we close and just say, you guys, please keep up the quality of work that you're doing, because you're doing amazing work with the responding, in the depth of knowledge that you're putting into your assignments. So I see, I got a question. What are some steps you took to provide some difference from magnet and charter schools? So one thing, some things that I did was, because my director or my boss, he has a transformation school background. And so one thing what we did was, the first thing that we did, he said, I want y'all schools to look and feel different. So he took, we all at this time, it was 10 schools that were able to be taken over by the state before my superintendent got into our district. The state could take 10 of those schools because they had been chronically low performing. And so what the superintendent did, as soon as he got into office, he designed the transformation zone, and he put those 10 schools in a cluster, and we just were different. And so the first thing we did was, we all 10 principals got a chance to go to the Ron Clark Academy and just watch all the amazing things Ron Clark do at his school in Atlanta, Georgia. And again, Ron Clark is private, but it's so many things, you guys, that he does at his school that can be implemented in public. And so our only task that the superintendent and my director gave us was, whatever you see that you can implement, bring it back to your campus. And so when I got back to my campus, you guys, I had so many ideas that I saw at the Ron Clark Academy that I did. The first thing I did, I put my kids in houses, because my school again was rezoned, redistrict, and reconfigured. So I had kids coming from 3 gang-infested neighborhoods. And so I knew if I didn't build their social skills, I was going to deal with discipline and fights and gang-related issues all day long. And so the first thing I did was, I built houses. And so I had each grade level was a house. So my first school that I took over was pre-K3. And so each grade level was a house. And so during this time, you guys, they had to do everything together. So what happened was, during the summertime, me and my staff, we said, okay, what are all the problems these kids are going to have before they come to school? They have problem with homework. They have problem on the bus. They have problems wearing the uniform. They have problems following the rules. They have problems with being loud in the cafeteria. So we just wrote down a whole list of everything that we can possibly think of, what problem kids have. And so then we began to assign points. When they do those things right, they got points for their houses. And so then when those kids came, my kids was over labeled with SPED, so they was just labeled SPED because they were bad, and they didn't have deficits. And so I had to break that barrier too. And so then they came because they had been talked down. So you guys, they had such low expectations. They wouldn't look you in your eye. They was broken kids. And so I knew that I had to put all this into consideration when I built those houses. And so what I did was, when we first took over the school, every 2 weeks, every house had to put on a production, some kind of leadership production, where they had to get together, work together, and put it on, and it only can be performed by kids. And so it changed those kids who were broken and who had low self-esteem. It changed them into become leaders, because they had to lead when it was time for to do the productions. And so, but my house system controlled everything at my school. So that's one thing that I did differently from Magnet and Charter. Number two, you guys, I did a parent academy because I knew my parents, one, they had to buy into what I did because I came in and I changed everything about the school. I changed everything about it because it was such a failing school. Nothing really was working. And so my parents like, okay, who is this little young guy that came in and did all those things? But once they saw their kids moving and their kids growing, they began to become invested. But my thing is, I'd had an open policy with parents where parents could come anytime, but parents had to go through some training before they can actually become workers into our school. And so what I did was, just like we have a teacher leaders in our school where teacher leaders have to go through training to become teacher leaders, I started a parent leader academy where my parents had to go through training for 6 weeks, 6 Thursdays in a row from 6 to 8. To just learn the ins and out about our school. This is how you support in the classroom. This is how you support in the office. This is how you support in the community. I taught them, we call it the Midway way. So I taught them how to be strong advocates and how to be active in the learning process and not just come up there anytime there was a problem. And so what happened was, once these parents finished their 6 weeks, you guys, remember with the parents that we were dealing with, most of these parents don't value school. Most of these parents did not finish high school in these settings. And so that's the reason why the kids have low expectations. I had a full graduation for those parents. So it was just like they had graduated from high school. The only requirement they had to do was make sure they had their kids there because I wanted the kids to see their parents graduated. But once those parents graduated, I began to assign everything that dealing with parental involvement to those parents. Only thing I did in my school was do academics, and that's why we grew so fast, because I was in the classroom for 90% of the day. Because I didn't have discipline, my discipline totally went away with our house system. But when it was time for to have family math nights and family game nights and all those things, my parents ran all that stuff. I turned it over to those parent leaders. They ran everything. When I needed parents from the community to be at the school, it was their job to go out and get their peers and bring them back to the school. So I held them to a very high standard once they went to that parent academy. You guys, it just transformed our school. So again, I say it can be done if the leader is bold and the leader wants it done. It can be done. Yes, it was a lot of work, but you guys, we had a very, very, very strong team. Another thing that I did differently, you guys, as far as parent involvement, because that's a big thing that we deal with in urban schools because of the lack of parental involvement. I knew when I first got that school that with elementary schools, primary, pre-K3, you're going to see mamas all day long. Moms are going to be there, but you don't see dads. And so my first thing was I built a 3-year plan. The first year, I strictly focused on dads. So everything I did was around dads. So what I did was I did a needs assessment, and I sent it out when I first became the principal to parents. I asked them what kind of things they like, what kind of things they like doing, what can I do to get them more involved, just to get feedback from them. So one, I didn't push anything academically on them in year one because I knew the structures in the system that I would put in place, our academics would come alive and come where I wanted them to do. I just wanted to hook them on school first. And so what I did was the first year, you guys, everything around school evolved around dads. We had movies with dads, dominoes with dads, basketball with dads, game night with dads, picnic with dads, Saturday field trips with dad. Everything we did so that I can hook the males in our school. And I hooked them. And once I hooked them, the second year, I focused a half a year on moms because moms were already actively involved in the school because, again, they're going to bring their babies to school. And so but I did the same thing, but I only did a semester for my moms. The same thing, movies with moms, muffin with moms, nail day, spa day with moms, field trips with moms, just to hook them. And then that second half we did, and we turned into family. And so we did family prom night. So we had a prom as an elementary kids. We had family movies. All those things that involve family. And then year 3 is when I hooked them academically. Everything we had was deal with academically and connects to academically. And I did that purposely because I knew once I had them invested into the school, they was going to start coming for academics. And so during that time, I was able to build them academically and start having, math nights with family, math night with mom, math night with dad, just to teach them the strategies we were using at our school and all the little tricks and tricks that our teacher was using with our RTI, just to teach them those processes. Well, look, they didn't have a problem coming to the school because they had already been hooked by all the fun stuff and all those relationship building things. Until year 3, they was there every time. So I can also attest to, and again, my school was definitely an outlier, but because I took the lid off and I dreamed and made it happen, that it really was successful because I didn't have a problem with parental involvement because I had a strategic plan on how I got my parents involved into that. Another thing that I did in my school, you guys, because again, I'm a rebel and I go against the district. When we did interim testing and when we did placement testing, all those things, when I found that my kids were on a higher level, I had a first grader. I never forget. I had 2 first graders, probably the second 9 weeks of school, reading on a 4th grade level. I began to move those kids in 2nd grade and 3rd grade, so they got content. I just took them out of there because they was way beyond their content. So at my school is you will see some first graders in some 2nd grade classrooms. You will see some first graders in some 3rd grade classrooms. Also, another thing that I did was, even when it was for closing gaps and how we close our gaps faster, when I observed my 3rd, my 4th, and my 5th graders, because my school did expand and change and become K-5. When I observed those kids 2 and 3 grade levels behind, they had to go to staggered RTI all day long. So I pulled them out because their core instruction was frustrating them. And I made them for 9 weeks go to kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade RTI for now, just to learn how to read and just to learn how to do foundational math. Then I pushed them back into their classroom setting. And my thing is, gaps closed quickly and they was able to handle content. So those are just some things that I did differently, you guys, but I was truly a rebel. I went totally against what the district was saying, what my boss was saying. After our first set of scores, my boss let me, he would let me do anything because he saw that it made such an impact on our scores. But I did not wait for the district to fix the problem. I didn't wait for a government, the state government, to fix the problem. If the problem with urban education is going to be fixed, it has to be fixed through leaders and teachers. And again, my teachers were very spoiled, and I spoiled them purposely because I worked the mess out of them because I had no excuses. Another thing, our school never closed. It never closed. I kept the school open 7 days a week. So it was no excuse why you couldn't be prepared. It was no excuse why I should come into your classroom and your classroom should be junky and messy and all those kind of things, because it stayed open 7 days a week. Teachers had access 24 hours a day. Whenever they wanted to go, they could go. But again, it was from leadership, we made those things happen because we knew it was about the business of moving kids and growing kids and giving these kids the best that they possibly could have. And so I will say it was a very challenging job being a leader in an urban school, but if I have to leave my job today, I would do it all over again. I'll do it all over again because I truly enjoyed the challenge. But number 2, we move kids, and we move kids of color. We move them. And when I say move them, I mean move them. When my fifth graders graduated, about 60% of my 5th graders were on a 7th grade level. And we're talking about kids who had strong deficits and huge deficits when they entered our school. And so one thing I would advocate with my parents how to hook them, I would say, please do not take your kid out of this school. If this kid started kindergarten, let this kid stay all the way up to 5th grade. And you know, one thing that we deal with in our urban schools, you guys, is mobility. Our kids move all the time. Urban school move all the time. I would tell my parents, I don't care if you out of district, bring that baby back to this school. Get a car and drop them off. I'm at the school every day to 6 and 7 o'clock. So whenever you get off work, pick them up. But I did that purposely because I knew we were growing kids and I didn't want those kids to get off the path. And so my thing is, parents believed in our school. So parents believed in the vision of, so you guys, I had a few parents who had moved I'm talking about truly out of this. I'm talking about to another town. When two of my parents was driving an hour every day just to bring their kid to school for the last 9 weeks of school because they did not want that child. Well, the child didn't want to leave, but the parent did not want that child to stop that education. But that was all because of the expectations we put in place with that. So Miranda, I hope I answered your question when talking about what are some things that we did that was different from magnet and charter schools. You guys, we did what was best for kids. We made it happen. It wasn't no policy. We didn't wait on a policy to be put in place or not. And we saw kids who was excelling. We advanced them by pushing them in a different grade. And just to get that learning, to keep them motivated, because sometimes we can focus so heavily on our kids with gaps, and those kids who are already on grade level, you guys, they just sit there and not get what they need to get, where they can really be blowing the roof out of state testing and all those kind of things. But we did, you guys, I can talk all day because we did so much. We turned our school we built a STEM lab into our school. So Fridays was called STEM Fridays, where teachers can do nothing but STEM all day long. And I'm talking about from kindergarten all the way up into 5th grade. So it's all about expectations, where those kids became problem solvers and they got a chance to express their creativity. We did it. And you guys, it was not all curriculum, tier one. That bugs the mess out of me, how they try to push tier 1 down kids' throats and rigor. You guys, it's more ways to really grow kids with that. And yes, I will say kids do need rigorous tier 1 standard-based instruction. But when we're thinking about urban kids, our urban kids need so much more. They need so much more. They need the social and emotional piece more than anything, because they have so much trauma and ACEs that they face with when they come to the school. So they need that relationship and trust building is one of the main things they need before they can really even concentrate on academics. But again, even with discipline, you guys, when I got there, it was an elementary school, so she had about 50, 60 referrals a year. When I got there for year 1, you guys, we had 1 referral for the whole entire year. 1 referral, because our kids were bought into what we were doing and they was hooked on school. And so we didn't have to worry about discipline. Our discipline consider us putting that kid aside and talking to that kid, listening to that kid and say, hey, I need you to have a good day. And that's what my discipline consists of all the time for year 1. Now, when my school merged and when I became to take over the second school as far as the K-5 school, there were some things I had to put in place for discipline to get it down like that. But when I was pre-K3, you guys, only 1 referral for that whole time, because kids was truly bought into school and we got a chance to just truly focus on teaching and learning. It was a refreshing, beautiful and refreshing thing. And again, if it can be done now, I'm talking about, you guys, one of the worst neighborhoods in Shreveport, Louisiana. Struggling, drug infested, all those things, but we did not allow that to dictate what kind of instruction that we provided to those kids and what kind of opportunities we provided to those kids. We made sure we still provided them a state of art, high quality education, just like they were getting at the magnet schools. So that's pretty much some things that we did. And again, as we go week by week, we'll talk more and more about the things, you guys. But as you can see, I'm totally fired up about urban. I'm such an advocate for urban education. And I like getting my hands on teachers and leaders in urban schools, because they are the change agents. They are the ones who make the magic happen in those schools. But they have to be bold and courageous in the process and just do what's best for children. Are there any more questions? Got any more questions or comments? All right, so my thing is, we're going to end with our excuses. You guys, you know I'm a person I love this this motivation and affirmation speech, and so we're going to end with that, and then we're going to get off. This time I won't make you repeat it, but I want you to listen. Excuses, excuses, excuses. Excuses are tools of the incompetent. They are used to build monuments of nothingness. Those who specialize in their uses are seldom capable of doing anything else. Therefore, on today and any other day, when talking about urban education, I shall not engage in excuses. You guys have a great Memorial Day weekend. Be safe and get some good work done so I can do some good reading. And I will see you guys back on next Thursday. Have a good weekend, and thank you guys for joining in.